Hi everyone, Elisa with Jots Designs. In this video, I'm making another personalized gift for my friend's new baby, Mabel. I used JDiction resin for this piece, black metallic powder by Artisu, and that's the only colorant I'll be using. And I wanted to incorporate the time Mabel was born, so I took the band off of a watch, and I will be using just the watch part itself. I took the battery out and set the time to when she was born, and I have tape over it just to keep it clean while I'm using the black powder. This is a 1-to-1 ratio resin, and it's measured by volume. It is quickly becoming one of my go-to resins, and it has very little smell and a long working time. I'm starting with a layer that will be just deep enough for the watch to sit in without it being covered up completely. I clean any extra resin off the mold with a Q-tip while it's still uncured, so that way I don't accidentally pull the mold away from the resin when it is set up. I waited about an hour and a half to let it set up a bit, and then I add the watch. I was struggling to get it straight and eventually just took the tape off so I could go off the numbers on the face of the watch rather than the shape of the watch, and then I just adjusted it until I was happy. The second thing I'll be adding to this piece is crushed seashells, and these I picked up from Michael's. I wanted this to be partially in the first layer so that there's no visible gap between the black and the clear layers. I waited an extra 45 minutes or so to add these because I wanted the resin fairly set up so that the shells didn't sink and disappear, and then I let that cure. I made up a new batch of resin and I get that spread out evenly. This mold only holds about 5 ounces and the first layer was less than 2 ounces, so each layer after that is going to be about an ounce, a little less. Again, I wait about 2 hours before adding more shells. On the left side of the M, I only add more towards the bottom, and you'll see why here in just a second. And then I let that cure overnight. The last thing I will add to this are slide letters, which are generally used on leather bracelets and such. So I get the letters placed pretty much where I want them and then tack them down using some Loctite super glue gel. I use the gel to give me just a little more time to adjust the letters if I need to than what regular super glue would give me, or wouldn't give me basically. And I didn't want to wait for something like tacky glue to dry, although I really didn't allow enough time for this to fully dry either. And you can see some of it around the letters when you look closely. So I definitely recommend letting it dry fully before adding more resin on top. I'm adding the letters on top of the cured resin just to make sure that they actually stay at the same level. I may not have been able to achieve that by adding them to the resin when it was still setting up. Let that set up for about 2 hours and add more shells. This is the last layer of shells that I'm adding. So I just make sure that it's good and full and they're all where I want them. A final layer goes on in the mold, and this time I'm filling it up but leaving it just a hint under the top of the mold. I want to make sure that there's a slight ridge around the piece when I demold it, so that way it'll have a nice edge to hold on to when I dome it. I cover that up to avoid dust and hair and let that cure. The last step is to take it out of the mold and dome it up with more resin. I let the resin do its thing and level itself out to the edges, maybe dragging it here and there in areas that needed a little coaxing. Then I added just a little more resin in areas that needed it to make sure it had a nice dome, but I don't want to add too much that it would break over the edge. I torch any bubbles, remove any dust, covered it, and let it cure. Doing it this way means I will not have to do any sanding of rough edges or worry about having to tape anything off for drips and such. I love how this piece turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.